support our tourism and the fishing industries that keep our economy strong, that provide for both livelihoods and, of course, adventures. But what also was crystal clear is that there are, from my conversations with the mayor and our city administrator, is that there are multiple crises that are ongoing threats here in the Sunshine State. From red tide to Piney Point, from blue-green algae to our manatee deaths. When I was on the water yesterday, I was able to firsthand see that it's not as clear as it always normally is. Seeing, unfortunately, dead fish coming up onto the boats. And even when we were on the water yesterday, a baby manatee was rescued after their mother had passed away and having to be taken over to one of the local zoos. This is something that we all need to work on together to make sure that we are protecting our waterways, to make sure not only for the livelihoods of our communities, but fresh water for our drinking sources as well. And we unfortunately saw in the response to our request for the state of emergency to be declared on red tide, too often efforts to protect our environment get caught up in partisan politics, with people focusing on finger pointing when we need to be doing everything possible to be working together. I came into office with a commitment to further clean water efforts in our state, and today I'm here to announce that we have been working hard at the Department of Agriculture for the past 2.5 years and are ready to roll out our work and our efforts. We are rewriting the rules when it comes to agriculture water policy in the state, taking landmark action to increase accountability, transparency, and coordination. When I first came into office, the Florida's Agriculture Best Management Practices, otherwise known as BMPs, had not been updated in over a decade. And I think that we all can agree that a lot has changed over the last 10 years, and our policies should reflect the times, utilizing the latest research, data, and technologies that are available. As part of our Clean Water Initiative, the Office of Agriculture Water Policy is revamping and reinventing its programs to ensure high levels of effectiveness. This includes common sense changes like prioritizing high-value projects within our cost-share programs to get the greatest bang for our bucks back to our farmers, who are the stewards of our lands, to continue to employ more efficient nutrient and water usage practices. We are also focusing on supporting multifaceted practices such as cover crops and no-till drills that provide significant climate mitigation and carbon sequestration benefits. With our clean water initiatives, for the first time ever, rather than relying on voluntary self-reporting when it comes to compliance, the Florida Department of Agriculture is conducting in-person site visits in cooperation with our agriculture stakeholders. For the first time ever, we will be taking action against those refusing to comply with state law to ensure the best management practices are being properly implemented. For the first time ever, we will be working with producers on corrective action plans to refer cases of non-compliance to the Florida Department of Environmental Protection for enforcement. And for the first time ever, the department is inspecting, collecting, and aggregating detailed records of the nutrients being applied by our agriculture producers and the production landscape. This increases accountability, transparency, and provides the data necessary to increase decisions based on strong science. Through our Clean Water Initiative, we are increasing the transparency of the state agriculture water programs while also increasing coordination with the public, stakeholders, the agriculture industry, and our agency partners. This is being done through enhanced education and training outreach, with our department providing online and in-person resources to make our agriculture water programs more accessible. Because to truly impact change, we know it takes collaboration amongst all of our stakeholders, from individuals to our research partners like UF-IFAS, to local governments and coordinating agencies like the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. From starting from zero when I came into office to where we are this week with announcing the Office of Agriculture Water Policy Initiative, Clean Water Policy Initiative, we have come a long way to make these landmark changes. And of course, I want to thank my team for working over the last 2.5 years to get us to where we are today. We know that our work is not done, and I am proud to have our department stand up and take concrete actions to promote clean water in our state when no other department has done so. And now I'd like to turn it over to your mayor, Mayor Kreisman, to share the work the city is doing in the face of red tide, fighting to protect our local waters, our environment, and our community. Thank you again, Mayor Kreisman, for your friendship and all that you are doing here in St. Pete.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you for the efforts of your department and the things that you are doing to help mitigate the impacts of red tide and to prevent them from occurring again to the degree we've seen in the future. First off, I have to say thank you to the city staff. We have had hundreds of city employees who, when they became city employees, never knew that part of their job was going to include cleaning up thousands of tons of dead fish and spending hours a day, 7 days a week, trying to pick up and clean up our bays and our waterways to make them clean and to keep our residents safe and healthy. The environmental impact of red tide, the impact to our health care and our health and breathing in those odors is certainly something we want to try and avoid to the greatest degree we can. I want to thank our partners at Pinellas County, Fish and Wildlife, and the Florida Department of Environmental Protection for providing us with additional resources that we've needed in order to get our bay as cleaned up as we possibly can. Right now, our current status is in the areas of the city that were hit the hardest, which tend to be on the east side of town. We're in a pretty good position right now. Right now, the red tide blooms are happening more offshore. We have some concern that obviously could come back again into our bay, and our folks are prepared for that if that happens. It's the steps that we all can take and that our state can take. And it starts up at the top with our leader, with the governor, and pushing our legislature. He had no problem when it was policies that were important to him of pushing those through. Clearly, issues that deal and policies that deal with our environment and red tide must not have been the same priorities, because right now, Pinellas County is the only county in the state of Florida, I believe, that has a fertilizer ban during the rainy season. Fertilizer and the nutrients from that help the red tide to become worse than it is. Piney Point hadn't been addressed. Had that spill of Piney Point not happened, we might not have seen the severity that we've seen in this cycle. And so the things that our legislature could be doing, from fertilizers to Piney Point to dealing with septic tanks, they haven't taken any actions. And if it indeed is a priority of the governor, please let us know it's a priority. Let the legislature know it's a priority and get it through next session, because you didn't do it this session. So we're going to continue to do the things as a city that we have to do for our residents and for our community, and to try and keep our environment as pristine as possible. And I appreciate the commissioner and everything that she's doing at her department to do the same and to help us in our efforts.
Thank you. And I do also want to say, Mayor, that I thank you for the amount of resources financially that you all have invested also in cleaning up your wastewater sheds and really having a continuous flow of information and updates, and certainly it's an investment, and we know that it can't be just a one-time investment. It's a longevity, because if we're going to clean up our waters, we need to make sure that this is a priority, and you certainly have done so here by investing so much money locally into your wastewater sheds. And so before we go over to questions, I do want to give a brief COVID-19 update. This morning, thanks to information being provided by the Florida Hospital Association, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services reported that Florida's hospitalizations rose again to an all-time high of 11,515 patients in one day. Of those, 2,400 of those patients are in ICU. And just a reminder that this doesn't just impact COVID patients. For example, Advent Health returned to black status, deferring non-emergency surgeries at hospitals to only conduct urgent procedures. Sadly, our state is now also leading the country in another grim new statistic. In Florida, we have the highest rate of children hospitalized with COVID-19. The Florida Department of Health reported 10,785 new COVID-19 infections among children under 12 years old between July 23rd and July 29th. That's an average of 1,540 new cases per day. And the infection rates are worse for children who are eligible for the vaccine. There were 11,048 new cases amongst those 12 to 19 that same exact week. According to the CDC, Florida had 32 pediatric COVID-19 hospitalizations per day between July 24th and 30th. Adjusted for population, that's 0.76 kids hospitalized per 100,000 residents, the highest rate in the country. Last week, Florida accounted for nearly 1 out of every 4 new infections and hospitalizations in the nation, according to the CDC. Unfortunately, we still don't have daily new case numbers to share with you from this weekend. When the state reached an all-time record of 21,683 cases. So I really want to emphasize that point. That the number of 21,000 cases when we reached that record over the weekend, today, Tuesday, at 1:45 in the afternoon, we still don't have new cases from Saturday, Sunday, Monday. And so this is really important that right now we are in the dark. And that this is, and I've said this before, it's like a hurricane coming through to our state. That when a hurricane comes through, we all live here, we know what to look for, we know we're glued to the TVs, getting those daily updates, monitoring every single weather update of where the cone is, where the prediction is, the severity of the storm, when there's evacuations, who to be evacuated, where there are evacuation locations. Can you imagine if we didn't have any of that and all we knew is that a hurricane was coming? That is what is happening in the state of Florida. And are really going to continue to ask our governor and Department of Health, you have the numbers. Give them to the people of our state. That is the only way that we are going to be able to make personal decisions, not only for our own health and wellness and safety as an individual, but for our local governments to be able to make right decisions for their own communities, for businesses to make sure that they are making the right decisions for their employees and for their customers. So I'm asking again, Governor, please give us back the daily updates when you have this information readily accessible. The people of our state shouldn't be jumping through hoops in order to get this information. And so we know knowledge is power. And as COVID information is leaving our state very vulnerable when we don't have this information. In addition to the urgent need for daily state updates, at my COVID briefing yesterday, I also called on the governor to declare a state of emergency to provide the much needed state and federal resources in coordination to combat the spread of the virus. And now, as of last night, I formalized that request, urging the governor to do the right thing by our state by issuing an emergency order on the COVID crisis and prioritizing vaccine education. Because getting the vaccine is how we're going to beat this virus. Yet half of our state remains unvaccinated. I know I've said this before, and I know I will continue to say this again and again. If you have not been vaccinated, please roll up your sleeves and go get the shot. It is easy. Contact your local health department to find a local vaccine close to you. And given the reports of how highly transmittable a Delta variant is and with the spread, we are also asking everybody who has been vaccinated to please be wearing your masks once again inside. We know that it is an inconvenience, and certainly as our children are going back to school, but make it fun for them. Put their favorite cartoon characters on there, have those conversations with them. We are all in this together, and the only way that we are going to get ahead of this virus and to beat this virus is to go get the vaccine, go mask up when you need to inside, social distance, go back to washing our hands. We have the tools this time around to beat this virus. So I'm asking everybody again, step up, do what's right. Do what's right by your community, by your family members, by your colleagues, and go get vaccinated, and we together will stop the spread of this virus. And we will answer any questions.
Well, Commissioner, we've heard Governor DeSantis, let's say, he seems very steadfast and that he's doing the right thing in his opinion when it comes to COVID. What can be done differently to lower those numbers in our state? What do you think can be done differently?
I mean, this is very simple. Go get vaccinated. We know the vaccines across the entire world are slowing the spread of the virus. And unfortunately, in states that have a lower vaccination rate, are in fact seeing higher COVID numbers. And so there's a direct correlation here. And so what we need to be doing as leaders, both on a local level and a state level, is be having these types of press conferences, going out, educating our people of what is happening out there, and encouraging people to get the vaccine. And when I ask for a state of emergency, that allows us to pull down additional federal resources to get more vaccines, to get more testing sites. I was talking to some healthcare providers up in Duval County, and what they are seeing is that right now there's only 2 free testing sites in Duval. The lines are 2 hours long. Outside, you're seeing heat stroke, and people now having to go to the hospital on heat stroke illnesses. And so what we need to be doing is educating, encouraging people to get the vaccine, and also encouraging people to get tested again. Because even if you have been vaccinated and you're seeing small symptoms, you may just think that you're just worn out or you're just tired, or it might just be a small cold. And so you go about your daily business. Instead, you need to be taking it seriously. Go get tested, know for yourself, in fact, if you are positive, and then quarantine. Like we know how to do this. And that is the only way that we're going to slow down, is that everybody takes personal responsibility for their own actions, go out, get vaccinated, and provide more state and federal resources and local resources so that we can open back up testing locations and more make sure that vaccines continue to be readily accessible, especially in our low economic communities and in our rural communities that need to have these very frank conversations.
The governor also said today that he'd rather see 5,000 younger people, come down with COVID than 500 older people. Something to that. What do you think when you hear him saying that he's okay, or he'd rather see these younger people getting disease because they're surviving?
I say I represent 22 million people in the state of Florida. Every life is precious. And to jeopardize our youth, even if it's 5,000 cases, 10,000 cases, 100 cases, these are our children. And a lot of these children may have underlying conditions that maybe their parents don't even know about. And certainly, the last thing we want to do is jeopardize our children when we know how to prevent it. This isn't something that we don't know how to stop the spread of the virus. Put on a mask. Why are we taking risks with any of our populations? Mask up, go get the vaccines, make smart decisions.
He's also called this immediate hysteria. That was something else. What do you think?
Well, everything that I say is based on science and data, and the media is doing its job by reporting on that information. And if the governor is not willing to give the people of our state the information, you all are doing his job. And so I say thank you. I thank you to everybody who is stepping up, our media, our local elected officials, our businesses, our corporations across the state who are making masks mandatory for coming into their facilities again. And so this is not a frenzy. These are our numbers. They're black and white. You can't sugarcoat numbers. This is what is coming out of the hospital association. I'm hearing every single day from parents, from frontline nurses and doctors and hospital administrators telling us what is happening on the ground. If he so chooses to not listen to the people and to the ones that are out there on the front lines, he is creating this frenzy. Instead, he should be getting out there and having these types of press conferences every day and giving information to the people so they can make their own decisions. All you all are doing is reporting on the facts.
I'm sorry to keep asking all these questions, but the other one I have is just about school starting next week. And parents are scared. I think a lot of parents are scared to send their kids back. What should they know with so much uncertainty about how this impacts kids, how they're going back, how you separate kids that want to be vaccinated, kids that don't. So much uncertainty. What's your message to those folks?
Stay vigilant. Talk to your PTAs. Talk to your other parents. And because look, I may put my children back in school with a mask, but if 5 other parents don't, and those children are bringing in the virus into the schools, you're not only hurting my kids, you're hurting the teachers, you're hurting the administrators, you're hurting the work environment. And we know that if there's an outbreak in a class, they shut down the class. So how is that beneficial to the kids? If they're going to have an entire first part of their school year potentially disrupted, and a teacher that may be out with COVID. And I go back to the fundamentals. We know how to get in front of this. Put on a mask. And it's a very simple conversation to be had, and everybody's got to do their part to protect their communities. And you know, I hear it as a stepmom of 3. I had that conversation with my boys last week, that they're starting school in a couple weeks and recognizing that they have to go back to school with masks on. And they're okay with it because they understand. The youngest is 6, and he turns to me and says, I know, because I don't want to get COVID. They're not stupid, our kids, you know, and so we just have to have these conversations with them, and they get it, they understand, they don't want to be sick either. And so I just think that I really, really ask our parents to be making the smart decisions and the right decisions for their kids. Obviously, working with your PTAs, working with your school boards, and getting this information out is an imperative. All right, thank you.